this is
You're muted. Good evening,
Evening, good evening.
everybody. Good evening.
How are you doing today? Hope you had a great day. Thank you for joining Rock Solid Marriages. We hope you've been blessed so far. And
Yeah.
today we're going to have our first couple, isn't it?
Yes,
Wow.
day 12. Welcome to day 12.
Is it day 12?
I'm just making sure.
Are you sure? Is it 12? Yes,
Yes,
it's day
welcome
12
to day
indeed.
12.
Yeah.
Rock Solid Marriages conversation. It's been something. It's been something. Getting a lot of feedbacks. Like, what did you mean by this? What was that about? So we are
Everything,
really
you have to explain everything, isn't it?
yes.
So, yeah, which is
But
good.
I think one of the what's the word? One of the greatest thing is just hearing people saying what a needed conversation. We should be having these conversations every day, actually, so that's really encouraging because marriage is something that is totally important and a great thing that affects our society. So it's something that we shouldn't be silent about, especially as kingdom citizens. We should be shouting out about marriage, the God way, almost from the rooftop every day. So it's encouraging to hear that people are wanting to hear more of these conversations. So yeah, welcome to day 12. Yeah,
No,
share,
I'm
like,
excited.
subscribe,
Yeah.
all those things. Do all those things before we get into our conversation today.
Yeah, like you said, we're here to learn. We might say something and then people will say, oh, what did you mean by this and da 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 da. We're here to learn from one another, so do not be afraid to ask any questions. If you didn't understand certain things, we're here to clarify. We'll be able to make it work because we're learning.
Yeah. So if you know any married people, tonight is the night that every single married couple should join in for this conversation, because we are going to be talking about mainly the family institution, like the family as a whole. So not just the husband and the wife, but the entire family, the in-laws, the dogs, the sheep, the farm. So hopefully we'll dive into some of those things that people often shy away from talking about when it comes to the family as a whole. And we've got amazing pastors that are joining us tonight. I mean, this is their favorite topic. This is their favorite subject, marriage in itself. They've been married for a while. They'll introduce themselves better than I will. But they've been married for a while. They're in ministry together. They're raising children together, and so they know what it is to uphold a family. And I'm excited to hear what they have to share with us tonight.
Without further ado, let's introduce
The James.
Mr. and
Good
Mrs. James.
evening,
Good evening.
good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Good evening.
How are you all
Very
doing?
well. How are you? We are doing well, and you?
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We're doing well.
I like how you're very stylish. You're like the cool pastors. The cool pastors of Wolverhampton. Good to see you tonight.
We're trying.
We're doing our best for God.
Amen. Amen. So before we jump right into it, can you please introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
You're
My
doing like
name
you've
is
been married for 2 days. Like, literally, I love this. You wouldn't tell that you've been married for donkey years.
honestly. My name is Buki Ademala James, and I co-pastor GC Wolverhampton with my husband, God City Assembly. I'm a marriage counselor, and like some people will say, really something she don't know something about. If you're in doubt, go and ask her. She's going to point you in the right direction. I'm a woman that loves knowledge. Nothing is too small for me to pick something out of, and nobody is too small for me to pick anything out of. And I'm married to Pastor James, even though you were there at our wedding. It's not what I bargained for. You're not talk of if to be a pastor's wife or to talk of being a pastor myself
Yeah.
is not, but I'm happy It's fun.
Amen. Amen.
Good
I
to
love
hear
the
that
fun
you're
side of
happy.
it.
We are happy with the happy, that
Going
part.
to 19 years now.
18 years.
18 years this year,
Wow.
yeah. So we're
Wow.
still waxing strong.
Hey,
Wow,
now we
that's
thank God.
amazing. That's amazing.
Pastor James.
Oh, where can I start? Okay, in a very simple, short, I'm a child of God, servant of God, saved by grace and mercy. So,
Yeah.
pastor in God City Assembly, Wolverhampton, with this beautiful woman of mine there, troublesome.
Amen. Amen.
So, December will be 18 years in this institution, in this journey.
Yeah.
And, also run Men's Empowerment Network, the men's ministry. And father of 3 amazing children,
Mm-hmm.
doing well. So that's all about us.
That's good. Good.
No, amazing. That's amazing. I already want to know how you met and how you knew each other before and all that. But no, we'll get into that later. Um, so we've been talking about marriage, and as Pastor Buki said, she's a marriage counselor. So she just not only is she experiencing it, but she's also teaching it. So we're in for a night. So before we go into interrogating you, can you just speak to us for a few minutes about this institution called marriage? Whether it's from your own experience or whether it's from what the Holy Spirit specifically told you, just feel free just to speak to us about marriage in itself.
I think the first thing I'm going to say is that it's about this husband, wife. What is here? It depends on what you put here at the apex. That's what's going to define your marriage. Is it God or people's opinion or your mother or your father or your pastor or what your brother says or what your husband's friend says or what your friend says?
Mm-hmm.
So if you put God there, He has never promised us there's not going to be troubles, trials, and tribulation. We've had our own fair share of a bit of this and that, a little bit of everything. But there is something that is sure. If you stay on God and His words, none of it will not come to pass. Yes, like I said, though it may tarry, but most assuredly it will come to pass. Which
Amen.
I discovered that a lot of people don't have that patience.
Mm.
They're in the era where people want things to, they want to pray now and it happens now.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean it's not happening, but it may not be the way you want it to, all smooth. God may want it to be a bit rocky so that when you get it, you will appreciate it, you will cherish it, and you long to keep it. So, what I found helpful in my marriage is God is first.
Mm.
Then every other thing follows. But after God, your husband, your children, then ministry. Don't do God, ministry, and your family. It's not going to last. It's got to be God, yourself, your family, your children, the ministry, because the only member of your church is your wife.
Loyal
The
member.
children, they will grow and they will marry, they will go. They can change denomination. You're on your own. The person you need to be good to at all times is your wife, because that is the only faithful member that will never leave you and forsake you, depending on how you start.
No.
Really?
That's a good intro. That's like that is a good intro. Thank you so much.
She's loaded.
Yep.
I'm trying to catch up.
So,
Okay. I think one of the first things I'm just going to say is that marriage is more about our transformation than
Mm.
our happiness.
Mm.
We focus too much on happiness in marriage,
Mhm.
whereas God is focusing on our transformation in marriage. And it is only when we allow God, like what my wife just said, drawing that triangle where
Yeah.
God sits on the apex of that triangle, and down on the right side is the husband. On the left side of that triangle is the wife.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen is that you draw an arrow. The arrow comes from God to the man, then from the man to the woman, then both of you
Mhm.
flow into God. And you also draw from God. So it is only when we allow God Himself to transform us in marriage that we
Mm.
begin to actually experience God's intention
Yeah.
for marriage. So if that's God has not been there or God is not there, it will be difficult for us to experience that transformation.
Mm.
So it is more of transformation than of happiness. And that transformation is a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
A caterpillar changing to a butterfly go through a metamorphosis process. So it doesn't happen in a day. It is a process. So we are being conformed, changing to the image of Christ every day in marriage. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty interesting.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I was just like, I wish I had my notebook. I'm trying to write on my phone, but it will look like I'm not concentrating on you. Thank you so much for that.
So I'll throw a question in. So what do you think then? After you have established all that, that is well and good. You've got God. You understand your position as a husband and as a wife in your marriage. So talk to us a little bit about, like, I know your wife did mention that sometimes storms will come. Remember, this is rock solid marriage, and Jesus spoke of a house built on the rock. Let's talk about the storms. When the storms comes and then they beat upon your house, how did you survive in the past 18 years you've been together?
Um,
I'm
I,
asking, I'm taking
I'll,
permission. Go on.
sorry, I'll
Ladies
give
first.
you.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of one of the storms or two that we've had.
Mm,
After we've had our first child, we waited on God for almost
8 years.
8 years.
wow.
I'm not really good with number. Is a calculator, so
Yeah.
I don't try too much. So we waited for close to 8 years
Mhm.
before we have another child. For me, I'm okay with one. He has always said three, but
Mm,
I'm ready to stick with one. I don't
mm,
mind, so that I can be flexible. I can go
Mhm.
wherever I want to go. I can opt and carry my bag. I'm the type that love to travel a lot, which I did a lot of it when I was young. So I wanted to continue. Then there was a time we went for fertility test. When it was the turn for his own result, we went together to take his own result. And they said he has 99.9%. He can give birth, but I have point not 0.00.
Wow.
Even if
mm,
I'm giving him, what do they call that in
IVF.
IVF, it's not going to fertilize.
Wow.
mm,
Then I said, okay, reason being that we've had a fair share of hospitals, medical conditions that they've said you can never give birth again. Hope you understand what you are signing for in
mm,
medication. But that day, something come to me and said, your faith will make you whole and you
Mm.
will be mothers of nations.
Mm.
amen.
Then some weeks after, a prophecy came that I'm going to have a son. You know, when you've just been told all your eggs had to be dried up so that you can be healed.
Mm. Mm.
Mm,
Then I said to myself that, okay,
Wow.
if that is the case, then I'm just going to I'm just going to hold on to what is in my hand, which
Yeah.
means I'm fine with the only one we have. I was
Mm.
already living life, putting her in plan. Just, I'm planning only me and you, and we're just three. This is what family means in English. This and da 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 da. A family that is more than four is not a family. When you look at all holidays, they put four people. That's a family. The fifth is an extra. Saying this just to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Then the waiting continued. Albert, my menstruation stopped when I was 14. Till I got married, I never menstruated. But I was getting pregnant and having miscarriages.
Wow.
Even till when I gave birth to my first daughter, I wasn't menstruating. Then that month, I menstruated. Then I just take it with like, we are welcome. All this while. I never knew that I was pregnant. By the day
Wow.
we went to receive my own fertility test, I was actually 16 weeks gone
For
Wow.
second child.
for the second child, for our second child.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was actually pregnant when I did the fertility test.
Wow.
Wow.
They said I can never. It's
Wow.
0.9. And as at the time we went to do that test, I would have been about 10, 12 weeks. So, and they said to me, it's not, you can be pregnant. Then one day I was sick. I normally just order medication. Once I call my doctors, I had to learn more about medicine because of all the medical condition that the devil just tried to put along my way to put me off and everything. Then my doctor that give me the results that I can't get pregnant said, Trish, I need you to do urine test. I was like, what are you trying to say? You are the one that gave me the results that I can't get. He said, I don't know what says you should do it. Just a week after.
Mm.
Just something
Mm.
is telling me do it. Then I did it. Then it was positive. I've never
Wow.
tested positive with all those kits before. It's always bringing negative, even though I'm pregnant. So those seasons, a lot of tears, a lot of downtime, a lot of thinking. Your word says that none shall be barren, even after I've had a child. What's the difference? And there is an adage in my language that said, if you have one child, you are as good as somebody without none. Because if anything
Mm.
happens to
Wow.
that one, what will you look up to?
Mm.
And I've had families, friends asking me, what are you doing? Are you waiting on that just one child? Which it taught me a lesson never to ask anybody why do they have only one kid.
Mm.
You
Wow.
don't know what their struggle is. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know how it's going on for them. You don't know what prompts them. Some people will have medical conditions that will make them after one child that their womb have to come out or
Mm-hmm.
else they will die. So you don't know their story. You don't have to pile up a sorry for them when you don't know their story. Don't
Wow.
pile up a sorry for them because you do not know where they are coming from or what is happening with them. That's one of the storms that I
Wow.
know that it took us incessant prayers, private time, talking together. In fact, I remember someone telling us that anytime we want to make love, we should pray.
Wow. Well, before you move on to the next one, I'm more interested in Pastor James. Like, Ademola, you wanted three, and here is the doctor telling you it's impossible with your wife. From the outset, you look like an African man, and I know sometimes the things that African men have to deal with.
It's not.
So,
It
what were
looks
you
it is
speaking
not.
to your wife? What were you speaking to yourself? I mean, what were you going through in such a time whereby you want your three children, but you're being told you can't?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not really fussy about the three children. Probably when I said it was the time of being naive. Obviously you plan your life. You say at a certain age you want to achieve this, you will have
Yeah.
become this. But then I have come to understand one thing, that many are the devices in a man's heart, but it's only
Mm.
God's cancer that will stand. So yeah, I was thinking or then planning three. We had a discussion around it. She said one, I said three. I sort of just left it. Let's see how it goes. There's no
Mm.
point of arguing about it. As long as we want children, you know. So when the news came that she might not be able to have another children again due to all those medical reports, I think at the third year, our first daughter will be 17 in November. So I think when she was about 3 or 4 years old, that is when I sort of leave everything to God.
Mm.
I just resorted that, Lord, let your will be done.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I've come to understand in my walk with God is that his will must be done in all circumstances, in all situations.
Yeah.
And I always pray that God should give me the grace and strength to accept whatever his will is.
Yeah.
So I sort of zero my mind and left it, that if it is one, let's channel our energy to that one, and let's give her the best of life. So, and rather than it becoming an issue between us, there's no point. Especially when we have these medical reports. I didn't even bother to pray or fast about it.
Mm.
I think I've done that the first 2, 3, 4 years when my daughter was 3, 4 years. After she was her fourth birthday, I stopped praying about child. I stopped going to any programs. I just resulted in, if that is the will of, that's what God wants for us, one child, we will be fine. We will still serve him. We will still love him. And life goes on. So when we were told that she was pregnant after 16 weeks of the second child, man, that became a miracle. Because I know
Wow.
only God can actually do that. So
Amen. Amen. Wow.
No, that's really good. That's really good. No, that's good. One of the question I want to ask is, sometimes I think in marriage there's so many things that happens, and I wanna ask, how have you remained committed to the marriage, even if at times where you wanted to walk out, I wanted to walk out, she wanted to walk out at some point, right? How have you actually kept intact, you know, in that marriage? Because we're talking about this is rock solid marriages.
yeah.
I want you to just know what, guys, in these 18 years, what
Well,
has actually kept you guys rock solid?
she
When
wants
I,
to go first. Ladies
no,
first. Okay,
no,
go
no,
on.
no, no. It's never
Let
about
her go.
ladies
Let her
first.
go.
Yeah.
When when we met through a mutual friend, and we were talking on the phone, and he said, "I know that voice." I'll call it short. Then I was like, "Which voice do you know?" I'm a London girl too. You can't just come and use that for me. And he said, "I've heard your voice before." Fast forward, we talk on Tuesday. Thursday is in Manchester.
We talk on Saturday.
No, on Saturday.
I was in Manchester Monday.
And he was in Manchester
Oh,
on Monday. He's very good with
I wish
days
my
and
husband was
dates.
like that. I'm like,
I'm not into details like that. She is. I'm not like that. So
No,
I'm.
I'm not.
So that's
I'm
the
not.
opposite. I'm a
punctual.
detailed man.
I'm not that good as well, but
Yeah.
if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We spoke on Saturday. He's in Manchester on Monday.
Mm,
Then this guy seeing me on Monday. Then he said, "I want to marry you. What do you have to say?" I was like, "Really? Just like that? You want to marry me? What do you have to say?" I was like, "You can't be serious, can you?"
mhm,
I love fun. I love life. I club. I this. I that. You leave me to yappy, 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 yappy. Then he said, "I'll see you on Tuesday again." I was like, no, Thursday. And indeed it did.
Mm.
Then the first time my dad saw him, my dad was like, marry him. I was like, what do you mean marry him? Just like that.
Mm.
I don't think marriage wasn't part of my own plan
Mm.
because of the way people behave around here. I did my teenage years here. So the way people behave, marriage wasn't part of my plan. I just want to be a rich woman, enjoying herself,
Mm.
adopt kids, or if any man comes, fair enough. It doesn't. That's it. I'm not
Mhm.
bothered. I'm not moved. I can't be bothered.
Mhm.
But fast forward to, I think we only courted for about 5 months.
Yeah.
5 months we
Mm.
courted for. I can't even say it's caught because half of the time I went to club, he would call me. I would just be putting the phone, I'll
Mhm.
go to the toilet to pick up the call. I'll
Mhm.
pretend like I'm at home sleeping. He does not know then that you can forward a landline onto a mobile phone for you to receive your calls.
Mhm.
So I'll forward my landline to my mobile and he will call me and I'll run to the toilet. I'll go and pick it like I'm sleeping. I I never knew that he know that I'm doing all those things. But
Wow.
there's one thing he always do. He will just said, keep safe. That's it.
Mm.
And exactly like the time I'm coming in 6 in the morning, his phone will ring. Like you are home safe. I'll be like, what do you mean I'm home safe? I've been at home. He will just smile and be like, you'll be okay. But those season, there is something he said, and I'll quote. When we decided we were going to get married, he said something, and I quote. He said, we're going to have arguments, we're going to have fights, we're going
Mm.
to have issues. In fact, there will be days you dislike me, there will be
Mm.
days you wouldn't want me around you, vice versa. There will be days
Mhm.
you don't want to talk to me, you don't want to see me,
Mhm.
not because I'm a bad person, but because of the way you feel at that point. And the
Mm.
first thing I'll tell you is feelings are liars. Then the second point, no matter what we are going through or happened, something is not on the table. I said what? I
Mm.
said divorce. No matter
Mm.
how angry I am or you are, never, ever, ever bring up
Mhm.
divorce or separation because the way I want my sisters to be treated and my daughters, that is the way I'm going to treat you 100% even
Mhm.
above.
Mm.
That's
And
good.
God has been faithful. He has
Amen.
done that. That we've had
Mm.
people said, do you guys even fight? Do you even,
Mm.
We do.
in fact,
Well, she fights you, but you don't fight her.
yeah, that's the thing. Somebody that can look you for
Yeah.
days and you'll be
Mhm.
ranting, you'll be laughing, you know. And the more he laughs, the more I get pumped up
Mm.
like, oh, oh, oh,
Yeah.
oh, 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 oh. And you still go and cook and say, that's your dinner. Because after
Mm.
the ranting, you're still going to need paracetamol.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do it? He's saying the truth. So
Yeah.
when we are having our issues, we know boundaries. We know
Mm.
what to say, what not to say, what is not admissible.
Mhm.
If
Mm.
you say what is not admissible,
Mm.
you are liable for the consequences because it's like a
Mm.
bailout charge thing within
Mm.
ourselves.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
You do some chores, you do some stuffs. Maybe you buy gift when you do this,
Mm.
you
Mm.
buy that when you do this. So
That's
one
a
of
good.
my own love language is gifts. So I always make sure I push him down to that place. Yes, you did it. Yes, you did it. No, I did not. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So that I can just get something. So I think the first thing every marriage, once they make that decision with God in sight and on mind, and as the first, see, there is something my husband, like I always say, he's my first mentor. He will say, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. We have 90% of marriages on earth. it is not God that joined them. It's either it's my friend's son marry, my friend daughter marry, or my brother's brother marry. So all these things, God is not involved in the mechanism of putting the two of you together.
Mm, mm.
It is as a result of somebody somewhere that put you together. So where is what God has joined together, and let no man put us under?
Wow.
So He knows the boundary from get go. Whatever we do, whatever we go through, and you just always have to pick
Yeah.
a day in the week that you pray only for your husband. I do that from get go. I pick a day, and he pick a day, he pray for me. So sometimes when he hurt me, I let him hear my prayer points.
So
I
that
need
I
to
can
start
feel
doing that.
guilty.
I need to start
Imagine,
doing
so that I can feel guilty.
I
Yeah.
said, God, you can see your son hurts me, and he's still behaving as if I'm the one in the wrong. Hmm. Hmm. What shall we say unto them? Hmm.
Wow.
So
So just in addition to what my wife has said, I think once we remember that marriage is a covenant,
Mm.
you know, and covenant is something that you can't break,
Mm,
and God, that's why God is a God of covenants,
mm,
So obviously there are times that, you just want to walk out of the marriage.
mm,
Probably, you yourself, you actually distance yourself from God, because I've
mm,
come to realize that when we distance ourselves from God, we have those feelings of we want to walk away.
Mm. Mm.
mhm,
But if we remain connected to God, no matter what happened, argument, disappointment, um, you had you are fighting the good fight of faith, you had misunderstanding between each other. As long as you are still connected to God, that thought or that feelings,
Yeah.
even though it might come, but then it might not prevail.
mm,
So
Mm.
the
mm.
key thing is to continue connecting to God despite the misunderstanding, the arguments. My wife and I will fight a lot.
Mm.
We
I
fight
like what
a
you
lot.
say a lot.
A lot. It's
We
like a
fight
lot.
a lot. We fight a lot. But then the secret is that binds us together more.
Mm.
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 There's somewhere where you do the makeup, you know, when you make up.
Yeah, you make it up. You
Yeah.
make it up, and you learn lesson in
Yeah.
that fight. So the
Mm-hmm.
next fight will not be the last like the last fight. Then
Mm,
the next fight will not be the same issue as the last fight. you
Mm.
know.
mm,
So, but they are good fights anyway. They are good
mm,
fight of faith.
mm,
Because
Mm.
why? We are team members, we are
Yeah.
team players. So we are fighting for the same thing anyway, but we're
yeah,
just
yeah,
fighting
yeah.
for it in different ways anyway.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
so,
yeah.
you know, we are fighting for each other. We are not fighting against each other. She's
Mm-hmm.
fighting for me, I'm fighting for her.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
so, but as long as we are connected to God,
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
that's really very, very important. Because the moment you disconnect from God,
That's
you
it.
will not be able to see the possibility of resolving that conflict.
The issue, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's good. That's
You
good.
then become self-centered
Mm,
and start
mm,
thinking about yourself.
mm.
So yeah.
That's very interesting. You touched on that because I wanted to ask. You mentioned something about how you have actually made up your mind that we're not going to talk about divorce. We're not. It's not in your vocabulary, right? How can Christians get to that point where that is really ingrained in their hearts and in their spirits so that they won't just look at divorce as, yeah, you know what, it's easy for me to divorce right now. I want out.
Yeah, I
How
think
can
it is a question of actually purposing in your heart.
Mm.
The Bible said Daniel purposed in his heart that he
mm,
will not defile himself with the king's meat.
Mm.
mm,
Mm.
Is you making that decision with the help of God and the help of the Holy Spirit.
mm,
Mm.
No one's going to make that decision for you. You must have that determination from the bottom of your heart and you must be truthful and be real to yourself. It starts from your heart. Just propose it in your heart that no matter what, it is a covenant. And the more you remember that marriage is a covenant, you know, for the people of the world, it might not be a covenant to them.
Yeah.
Because remember, marriage is not really necessarily a Christian thing. Marriage is a humanity thing, you know. But because we are in God, we are in Christ, we understand it more better,
Yeah.
you know. So once you remember that it is a covenant, and covenant is not something that's easily, you can't easily break covenants just like that. So the moment you have that in the back of your mind, that will always keep you in check. We can have our arguments. I tell my wife, we can have arguments. We are human beings. We can have misunderstanding, but it mustn't cause our mind bringing separation or divorce on the table. You know, the only thing that can bring that on the table will never happen, which is probably verbal abuse, physical abuse, all those stuffs. Those ones will not even come on the table. But as long as those ones are outside it, every other one is something that we can sit down and resolve it because they are inevitable. Why? We are working towards transformation. Marriage is a transformation. So we are working towards it. We are work in progress. We are not perfect couples, but we are not where we used to be 18 years ago.
That's amazing.
That's good.
That's good.
I think what I'm hearing a lot from your conversation and from your thoughts is intentionality. Begin where you want to end. Like she was saying from the beginning, you made up your mind that this will never be on the table. I'm going to treat you better than or the way I want my mother or my sisters to be treated. I'm going to do this. So what you now want to see, you have to act accordingly. If you want to see something or you don't want to see something, what are you doing to make sure that you see or you don't see that? And I think that's one thing that might be missing in our society today, even in the couples within the church, that lack of intentionality. Like even sometimes when we're praying to God, we are asking God for things, but we are not actually doing what requires us to receive the things. I think this is something that we had to deal with even in the business world, that there's so many things we are praying for, but what are we doing to make sure that we see the fruition of what we are praying for? So I think that's one thing we really have to encourage younger couples. What do you want to see? Then do accordingly. You know, nobody's gonna come and do it for you. This is your marriage, so do according to what you want to see at the end of the day. That's amazing. Thank you so much. One of the
Let
things
me
that
just add something there based on
yes,
what you just said now.
yeah,
I think there's a scripture, is it First John? I remember First John something said, to him that knoweth to do good and do not do good, to him is a sin. Now, people say knowledge is power. No, knowledge is not power. It is the application of knowledge that is power. The knowledge you apply is what gives you power. So many people have knowledge of something, but they are not doing it.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
one thing for you to know something, it's another thing for you to actually do that which you know.
I
No.
think I like that because one of the things I was going to ask because of what you have been saying is how have you mastered the art of conflict resolution? Because it seems as if, yeah, as much as we can fight, but maybe we don't finish our arguments because we haven't mastered the art of conflict resolution. So how have you guys mastered that craft?
Number one, we don't
Teach
sleep over
us.
it. We don't sleep over it.
There is something
Okay.
there's something there are, see, most of what actually make us to be where we are today, they are what we agreed on the night of our marriage. That no matter how angry you are or upset you are, if you've done anything that you know that if I hear outside, it can hurt our home, our
Mm.
children, or our ministry, please do not let me hear it from another person's mouth.
Mm.
Because by the time they add salt and pepper, it will
Mm,
be hard for you to give me your own version.
mm,
First.
Mm.
Second point, no matter how bad we are or the issue is, both of us can't sleep.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, that's that
That's actually a
that's
problem.
that has
You cannot.
happened,
she
you
knows
know,
that I'm a
On
good
so many
sleeper.
on so
occasions.
many
Oh my
occasions.
God, my husband
One
can
will be
see
downstairs,
anything.
one will be downstairs watching TV, and I
Yeah.
will just turn in and shoving. I've I've made 3 pots of stew before overnight when we are sleeping. I cook jollof rice, I cook stew, I cook vegetable. I was just cooking
Wow.
because we are having issues.
Mm, mm,
Then the next thing you come to join me, then we finish the jollof rice together. Excuse me. Then he said, let's go and sleep.
mm.
I said, what are you meant to say? Then he said, sorry. I said, so, Lucky, you are such a dumb. You've been in the kitchen slaving for 6 hours. For just 5 letter words. Then you could have just
You know,
demanded.
with men, God help men, God
Yes,
help us. You know,
yes.
God
So
help us with our egoistic. You know,
Mm,
like I said, we are work in progress.
mhm.
You know, and I'm sure
we don't sleep. We
when I
don't sleep over
yeah, when I look back now,
arguments.
I'm getting better. I'm not there yet, but I'm
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
there, and I'll
yeah.
get there one day. You know,
No, like,
men, there's a way we say our sorry.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't like it.
So
I
Why
we,
want
can't
it
you
to
say
come
it
straight.
sooner than later?
The
Why do you
le-
have to
yeah,
wait
no, no,
till
no,
Then
no,
I'm
our
no.
learning.
We
right
even say
there
it.
and there?
Sometimes we even say it. We even say it sooner. But there
Yeah.
is a technique men say sorry, and
I
Mhm,
I
don't
and
want it.
I'm hoping that our wives will get that code
mhm, mhm,
No,
mhm.
and just accept that apology.
Yeah,
no.
That at
that's
least
it.
they've used that code to say that sorry. You know, but the caveat is we can change from that habit. You
Mm,
know, and just say I'm sorry. And of
yeah.
course, she can testify. Not 100%,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
I know that I'm above pass mark.
mm.
Mm.
So, you know, at least I'm like 70% now. You know, thank God I'm work in progress. You know, but then but then we don't sleep over those conflicts.
Mm,
We for we might talk for 4 hours about it. We might talk
mhm,
back and forth to eventually come to an agreement. Sometimes I have to give up. Sometimes she has to give up. And eventually we just cement it. You know, when you cement something, you know, and those times are the times that you enjoy it most. You
mhm,
know,
Mm.
when you
mm.
cement
Yeah.
the
Yes.
argument, you cement it. You know, because there's no point of having those arguments
What a dirty mind.
Yeah.
and you
Mhm.
resolve it without cementing it.
No,
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 no, no,
no,
no.
no, no. It doesn't.
You
It
have
doesn't.
to cement it.
I
So
think as
when you
men,
cement it,
we don't feel
Mm.
good if we don't do
you
that.
don't feel good.
Me,
So when you
yeah,
cement it, you are
yeah,
having a kind of recommitment to
yes,
show that
yeah,
I am here for you. I'm not going anywhere.
yeah,
And
yeah,
is try it is always sometimes some of the best time
yeah.
A
you
gift is
when you
It's
enough
cement
to
true.
it.
cement it,
It's
You
that's
can
true.
say
all.
yeah, Pastor Luke, because
Yes.
the
And
end of
Netflix is
us
enough to
brother.
cement it.
Now,
Um,
to be sincere, when you cement the conflict, when you cement it, I can tell you can she knows she can testify,
to
you
what?
know, because at that time, both of you,
Shandai.
I can testify that God is good
God is good at that
all
time.
the
Oh,
time.
that's mercy.
All the
God is
time.
good. Yeah. So there, uh, another thing I want to say is that we must learn to be vulnerable in marriage,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true.
especially the men.
yeah.
Mm,
You
mhm,
know, I don't know why keep on hammering on the men.
mm.
Men don't are not ready to be vulnerable in their with their wife. If you are not vulnerable with your wife, who are you going to be vulnerable with?
Neighbor.
I think sometimes you know what there might be history, right?
Of
You
course,
can't,
I agree with you.
you cannot be vulnerable when you know that your vulnerability can be exploited. So therefore, there must be some level of, safety within that space of being vulnerable. If you don't create a safe space, imagine if you're a guy, if I become vulnerable with my wife, and tomorrow she's like, I thought you were a man, but why were you crying over this? This is just, I
Okay,
won't be
okay.
vulnerable.
See, that is where we are making that mistake. Because
Yes, yeah,
the only place you can be vulnerable without thinking the consequences is within the context of marriage.
yeah,
Why?
absolutely.
Because you and your wife, you are one.
Mm,
You are one body, you are one entity. God sees you as one. You
mm,
know, on Sunday was my mom's 77th birthday. She will have been 77 last
mm,
Sunday, which was to be Father's Day.
yeah.
And I usually call her in the morning
Mm,
around 6 a.m., 6:30 before 7, just to wish her happy birthday. So
mm,
I wake up on Sunday morning and I pick up the phone. In my mind, I want to call my mom. Who happened that
mm.
she's passed away? So
Wow.
the thought came that, come on, my mom is gone. She's no more.
Wow.
And I started crying. For 1 hour, I was
Mm,
crying. She was laughing at
mm,
me. Now,
mm, mm.
simply what I've done is just for me to show to her that men are emotional as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I have got emotions and I've got to express it.
Mm,
You know, I might not be able to do that in front of my children, in front of my friends, but I can do that to,
mm,
because I know I've been vulnerable with some people in the past that it has been exploited,
mm,
which now, probably because of their own lack of wisdom, you know. But when it comes to my wife, I think I need men have to be vulnerable with our wives. We need to
mm.
tell them our struggles.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Because African mentality that you don't tell your wife everything what you're
No,
going
no,
through.
no, no,
So
no. Yeah.
who would you tell everything if you don't tell your wife?
When the chips are down.
Because she's the only person that will be there for you when everybody are no more there.
Mm,
So what's the point? So we need to be vulnerable to our wife. Let them see our
mm,
weaknesses. Let them experience it. And in fact, it makes our wife to respect us more.
mm.
It makes them to actually
Yeah,
respect us
yeah.
more. They will see us in a new light. And it also helps
Mm,
them as well. They themselves also be vulnerable because we have to be vulnerable with each other as husband and wife.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
That's true. I was actually just thinking that before you said it, that if I see your vulnerability, I'm drawn to you, and it makes me less drawn to my friends, to my girlfriends, than I would have been if me and you are not vulnerable to each other. And right, like you rightly said, when vulnerable the next time, I would come to you rather than go to my girlfriends, because I know that what you gave me, I can trust you to give it back to you, and you keep it. If I did indeed kept your vulnerability to myself. So I think that is very key for married couples to actually know that you are there for each other. You are one. You are literally one. If you're not going to be one, then that gap, will be like what you said, Pastor Buki. If you leave that gap and put someone else in between, you'll be vulnerable to those people rather
Which
than to one
a
another.
lot of what I've discussed, what I've seen in the past few years is that a lot of women are actually trusting their friends. Your
mm,
best friend after
Mm,
God is meant to be your husband or
yeah,
your wife.
yeah,
But what
mm,
I've seen in the past few years is that a lot of ladies trusted their friends, and a lot of men trusted their friends too, to tell
mm,
them what they are going through. A man that is not happy will never give you an happy advice. The moment
mm,
your
yeah,
wife misbehaved or disrespected you, it could just be ranging hormone. It could be closer to a menstrual period. It could be maybe it could be menopause. It could be brain lapses. It could be pressure at work. It could be a slight depression. It could be an help or a cry for help. That can you not see? I'm
mm.
falling off
Yeah.
here.
mm, mm,
Mhm.
Can't you see? It's just a cry for help.
Yeah.
Instead
mm,
of you running to your friends, which they cannot help you,
mm,
See, there is difference between a churchgoer, a religion lover, and a lover of God. Until the day, there's something that me and my husband always says. There is rarely churches you go to that you hear altar calls again. Even in programs that they spend like thousands of money to bring whoever they bring, they really do altar calls. And I'm at that point that altar calls is not the point. Rededication is what we need to hammer on. Actually, a lot of people, they've come out giving their life times over times over times, but they need to rededicate in the real rededication, because a lot of things that I've seen. I have a book that I'm writing, which I wrote there. A lot of problem could be avoided in marriage
Mm.
if you don't kid a kidder, which
Mm.
means a smart man meet with a smart woman, such as us. It's you can outsmart each other.
Mm.
And there is something that a lot of marriages don't have in place: boundaries.
Mm.
From the get go, I know how far I can go with my husband and his siblings. I know where my boundaries halt,
Mm.
and I know where to give honor to whom honor is due.
Mm.
Mm.
And I know who to say, what to say to, and
Mm.
how to.
Mm.
Which a lot of ladies nowadays, you don't want to be friend with your in-laws, you don't want to be friend with you don't even want to see your mother-in-law, you don't even want to have anything to do with them, and you expect their son to give you the result you want in a marriage, to love you
Mm.
as you would want, to be there for you.
Impossible.
Impossible, because
Mm.
two wrongs can never make a right, no matter where you
Mm.
take it to. It's just like that. Until somebody come and do it like this, it's
Mm.
going to remain to be this.
Mm. Mhm.
But the only way it can come to this is when two of you agree together. Because after this, then you fuse and cleave.
Mm.
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 Mhm.
Without this, you are like this when you met. From talking, discussion, you propose, you become this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then after you get married, one hand goes in,
Mm.
a bit
Mm.
of trust. Second, a bit of trust. Third, a bit of trust. Fourth, then this is God. These two
Yeah.
thumb goes on each other. That
Mm.
is the way marriage works. There is no magic in marriage. Your
Mm.
input is the output you get.
That means the output.
You
No.
cannot, it's just like somebody that goes to church every now and then, pray, do this, and indeed they are serving God with a full heart. And you that you come when you have money to put in offering basket. God cannot be fooled. Whatever a man sow, such
Mm.
is the story of marriage. Don't
Mm.
be doing half plenty, half full. And you want to reap
Yeah.
what
It's not even 50
people
50.
that put in
It's
more.
100. It's 100.
That's wow, you're mentioning that. Wow, time just goes when you're talking. We will try to finish by maybe 10 past. Um, we're talking, we wanted to really hammer on family today. So just spend some time. You started talking about it, but you've been married now 18 years, you've got three children, you've got ministry, both of you have come from two different backgrounds, you've got mother, you've got father, you've got siblings, both of you, so you both have families. How have you protected your family now that God has given you your own, but you still have others around you? How have you built your family, or how are you building your family, and how are you protecting that from the people that love you, people that you love, but this is your family?
Okay. I think being the man, I'm gonna deal with that. Uh, yeah. I came from a large family, as you may know. My mom has 8 children. So I've got 3 sisters before me, and I've got 3 sisters after me, then a boy. So 6 girls and 2 boys. So and I grew up in the midst of these
Gelly, gelly.
6 girls and I know they're in and out, and I've seen them being grown up from girl to become lady to become woman to become mother of their children. You know, now they all know me where I stand. Before my mom passed away, they know where I stand. And this is the hierarchy for me as a person. And I believe it's biblical.
Mm.
Is God first in my life?
Mm-hmm.
After God comes my wife.
Yeah.
After my wife comes my children.
Mm.
After my children comes my purpose, my vision, ministry.
Mm-hmm.
After ministry comes my parents. After my parents comes my siblings. For me, that is the order and how I deal with everything. I tend to protect my wife more than anything. I'm not saying my wife is perfect, no, but then there's some certain things you can't discuss with me about my wife. That once you use certain words, you are taking it to the extreme. You know, if you want to talk to me about my wife, you are free, but be careful of your chosen words because those words they are like seeds.
Mhm.
When they are being sown into the heart, if one is not careful, you will start ruminating on those words. And if a man is not careful, you start seeing your wife in that light of those words.
Mm.
Very important. So I protect my children more than anything. My children are not perfect, and that's why I don't really say much about anybody's children. I try to focus on my own children.
Your own, yeah, yeah. That's
They might
good.
be pastor's kid, but they are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to know God for themselves.
Yeah.
They will make mistake. They will fail as they go. They will learn from those failures, and they will meet God. Because they are pastor's kid does not make them to be born again or a Christian.
Yeah,
They
it's
have
not
to
automatic.
discover and know God by themselves. But don't tell me, and you are a pastor's child. No, I wouldn't take that because
Mm.
see, they are pastor's child, but then don't place unnecessary expectation on my children, you know, because they are pastor's children now. God is giving us grace and strength to train our children in the way they should go. And we are doing our best.
Mm.
So my role is for me to protect my family in all everything, make sure that no third parties, and it is just for a man to make your stand known. Let them know. Once they know where you stand, I can guarantee you there are some certain things they won't bring to you about your wife and your children
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
they know how you are jealously guiding them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never reported my wife to anybody that she has done this, she has done that. Of course, she has reported me on so many occasions to probably my spiritual father, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We do tend to do
Yeah,
that.
which is see, which is in
Our hearts are tender. We don't want to keep it in. Like,
yeah,
once you don't listen to us, we need someone to just,
yeah, to be sincere, which is really good. You know why it is good, and I'm sure Pastor Luke, I've said
Mm-hmm.
this in men's meetings several times. There is a king and there's a fool in every man.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as a woman, you must be wise enough to always speak to the king in your man. But if you speak to the fool one day and the fool comes out, make sure you have somebody's phone at the end so that you can
there you
the
go.
owner can call the person.
Mm-hmm.
Because a man must have somebody in his life that will tell him to
Mm-hmm.
sit down and he will sit down.
Yeah.
Let me quickly chip this in. In aspect of a king and a fool, I always use that example for people. Like I said, before God gave us the position we are, especially me, I'm from a Jehovah Witness background. I had a lot to deal with. I know nothing. I've never stepped into any church except CMI Liberty House. That was the first ever church I stepped in, and that's where we got married. So there was a lot of things that were new to me, but there is something God did for me. In that moment, He gave me a very, very good memory to memorize, to
Mm.
know songs. I'm an addict worshiper. I'm not, like I say to every woman, know what drawn God to you. Is
Mm.
it prayer? Is it fasting? Or are you an addict worshiper? What somebody will pray for a month for, if I devote 1 hour to worship in oneness of heart and truth, I'm fine and I'll get results. But there is something a lot of women nowadays are missing it. The people you're seeing that you think, oh, her husband is helping her to carry bag. You don't know what is in that bag if I hold it in a
Mm.
10-year part. Maybe I've got stuffs, water, medication, this and that. There's something I don't do. You know a bit about my health challenges when it started those years. I don't come out and say to people that as a pastor, you're not meant to use medication. Why did God give them the wisdom to
Mm.
produce medication? So that his own children will not be dying like a chicken needlessly.
Mhm.
He give them the strength. Sometimes when they offer you operation for your medical condition, it is still a form of healing because the same operation some people will do it, they will die. The same medication some people will use it, they will still end up dying. Then what are you talking about?
Mm.
Let people be themselves. You mind your mind.
Mm.
Don't major or minor.
Mm.
Make sure that in the process of you trying to judge people, trying to be the judge and Georgina over their life, make
Mm.
sure that yours is perfect.
Mhm.
Because when people have, like I said at the beginning, I'm yet to see that bit of issues God has not taken us through.
Mm.
Honestly, though it may be hard, health challenges, financial challenges, childlessness,
Mm.
name that thing. I
Mm.
have something to say about it.
Mm.
God
Mm.
was intentional. I got to a point. There was a point in our life that he attempted suicide. Nobody knew. So when you see us that we are fused together,
Mm.
it's because we've crossed a lot of bridges together
Mm.
Mm.
that you might not have.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
So mind the mind, mind thoughts, mind the words.
Mm.
Because what a plant that wasn't planted in your presence, there is no how you will know the length of the growth.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Women have good days, bad days. They may have bad hair days. They may have boredom with duties. They may have sleepless nights. They may have difficulty in making large decisions. They may
Mhm.
have days whereby they can't even cope with from school run to work to lessons to doing this to the one pouring ketchup on their uniform. There are
Mm.
so many things that we are built to compartmentalize our brain. You send a man three things in market, if you only remember two, and we
Mhm.
can go for three and come back home with 10.
Mhm.
That was not
Mm.
our ministry,
Um,
but we are getting there.
Thank you so much for
So,
that. Wow. We need to have you back. I mean, we're gonna end in the next minute. Pastor James, you've got a men's ministry and we just celebrated Father's Day this Saturday. From your own experience and your interactions with men, what is it that, especially young men, what is it that they need to know? One, if you would sit down with a young man, one or two vital things that you would definitely say you need to know as you go into marriage.
number one, they need to be accountable to somebody,
Mm.
mentor.
Mhm.
You know, most men are not accountable to anybody.
Mm.
Number one, they are not accountable to God, and they are not accountable to any man. I think you will save yourself a lot of stress, a lot of issue, if only you can be accountable to somebody,
Mm.
someone you respect, someone you respect their wisdom, a
Mm.
mentor, you know, someone that have gone through what you are about to start,
Mm.
that can actually guide you through. You know, no one is an island, nobody knows it all.
Mm.
You know, we can all learn from each other. And the reason why men find it difficult to be accountable is because of pride.
Mm.
I know it all. You don't know anything at all. You don't know anything yet. You know, I still learn from people that have married for 30 years, 35 years. I still learn from them because if they can be together for 35 years, I want to know what is keeping them for that 35 years that I can learn from.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
young men, you need to be accountable, number one, to God, number two, to a man, uncle, brother, your pastor, a friend, someone that can hold you accountable of your actions and your
Mm.
behaviors. It gives security to the
Mm.
woman, you know. And the other thing is that let Christ be your head.
Mm.
If Christ is not your head, you can't be the head of the woman.
Ooh.
Christ must be your head. You must
Mm.
submit to the lordship of Christ. He must be the Lord of all.
Mm.
If he is not Lord of all, he is not Lord at all. You know,
Mm.
you must submit to that lordship of Christ so that it will be easy for you, for your wife to be, or your wife you're already married to submit to you. You don't have to force submission, you don't have to demand it. Once your wife sees that you are submitted to the lordship of Christ, she will submit to you automatically by default without
Mm.
any issue. So those two things for me, I have seen, and I've seen in men. You know, it's not about going to church. I'm not talking about going to church. It's not about being a worker in the church. It's not about being a minister in the church. No, I'm not talking. It's not about driving the pastor here or carrying the pastor's Bible. No, no, no. It's not about that. It's about you submitting to the lordship of Christ. Christ must be your head. He must be the authority over you, and you must be accountable to someone.
In closing, I'll quickly say this.
May the church
No
say
matter
amen.
no matter what is going on in your marriage, learn to take it to God before you take it
Mm.
to. Once
Amen.
you give him what you have, wait for him and let him talk back to you. Then
Mm.
after
Mm.
that, you have the license to go to another person, maybe your mentor, your friend. Then you can even, God can direct you back to your husband or to your wife.
Mm.
Sit down together. Come, let's reason together.
Wow, that
That's
is good.
really good.
Thank you
Really.
so much. I
Wow.
think we definitely need to have the James back because we could keep you here for 2 hours, 3 hours because there's so much I
Thank
want
you
you
for
to
having us.
practically tell us. How do you practically, do this? So we need to find the time to have you back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this evening, day 12. It is done. It is done.
Thank
Join us
you.
again tomorrow for another session of Rock Solid Marriages, 21 days of marriage conversations. Have a great night. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank